Alright guys, welcome finally to episode 3 of Project Strength Cast. We've tried recording this twice before, but yeah, we're here now. Today we're going to be continuing on last episode's topics, and we're also going to be introducing a new sponsor. I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so we're very happy to kind of announce the fact that we have officially been sponsored by Siege Fitness, the premier provider for equipment for both commercial and home gym purposes. If you're looking for something that is top-notch quality and you want to do a lot of strength work, Siege is the kind of place that you want to shop for your needs, right? They have all types of racks, high-quality barbells, benches, everything you would need if you are a serious lifter. And we want to give a big shout-out because we are starting off, and to get a helping hand like this from Siege means a lot to us.
Absolutely.
And just like Siege providing quality, we want to provide quality content for you guys as well, right?
Absolutely. So without further ado, alright, let's just get into it. I'm gonna share. We have slides today. Little upgrade. I'm gonna share the slides that we have, and let's get into it. Alright. So this is today. This is a list of today's topics. Today we're going to be discussing. Firstly, we're going to have a recap on the dose-response relationship that we already spoke about in the last episode. I would recommend you go watch that. You'll be able to understand this one way better. Then we're going to be talking about how we measure dose against objective factors with an example from Jay's sheet as well. We're going to have a recap on volume, frequency, and intensity. And then we're going to talk about a lot of different metrics as well, like detraining, maintenance, MEB, MRB, and more. After that, we have average and peak intensity. That's probably going to be an interesting topic, right? We're going to have a nice discussion on that. And then top sets and back offs, why you should probably not call them back offs, and we're going to get into that as well. And finally, we're going to end it with a discussion at the end. All right. So should we just get into it? Are we ready?
Just kick it off. I'll just join out of it.
All right. So moving on to the first slide that we have, it's a recap on the dose-response relationship. I'll let Jay begin.
When you think of the concept of dose-response relationship, it's actually very simple. You want to think of it in the most simplest of terms. When we talk about dose, it is a training dose, right? It is a dose of stress that you are providing to an athlete, right? That comes in the formulation, by way of a certain set, which has a certain number of reps given at a certain intensity, right? Whether it be through percentages or RPE or a combination of both throughout an entire program. The objective of this is that a certain training stress you give to someone is going to have one of three reactions, right? It is either going to show a positive improvement, it is going to show no improvement, or it is going to start and detract from an individual in terms of their performance, right? So dose-response relationship is essentially just us saying we've applied a training stimulus and it falls into one of these three categories.
Absolutely. And he kind of covered the levels of dosage as well there. So the part where how it actually is useful in programming, as you can probably tell from the explanation and from what the name of the entire thing is, the dose is kind of what you give to a person while they're training, what they actually train with, and that kind of helps you quantify their training, if I were to explain it in a very simple way. Because Jay mentioned a very good point in our previous attempt to shoot this episode. You said that everything here is kind of it's very made up, to say it in a very simple way, and this is just something that helps us to quantify things which you would not normally be able to do it just by talking about it as such. I'm trying to express what I'm thinking, but I hope you get my point.
Because I just want to say this, a training dose, when you look at the literature, you kind of see that you can get stronger by doing work. Okay, I want to just take just a little deviation to say there is when building strength and strength expression has these two levels, right? There is building strength and there is the skill of expressing strength at higher intensities, because we want to kind of know that the body kind of reacts differently when it gets close to its 100% of its load tolerance, right? When you are handling 85% or above of your 1 rep max, things start to move a bit differently, right? But strength can be built. No, you don't have to go that high in terms of intensity. You can build it at a lot lower, sub-maximal loads as well.
Yeah.
All right. So you kind of want to understand that your training dose can be for adaptations of building strength, that are very submaximal in terms of intensity, but it can also be for practicing expressing strength, which can be these like top sets we kind of get into. Top sets serve a multitude of purposes, but essentially the dose can like different doses for different reasons, and these doses are not isolated in nature, right? Things that are applicable for strength will translate into elements of hypertrophy, which elements of hypertrophy will translate into strength. A dose can have multiple different responses.
Exactly.
Right? But you got to ask your question is the current dose that I've given applicable to the response I am looking for?
Makes sense, yeah. And also just like another point, strength adaptations and obviously like skill expression. Skill expression is also one thing that I just wanted to add to that. Like we also do program for skill, and managing dose on the basis of that's like a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
All right. So should we move on to the next topic?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I think this is the most important thing that we kind of just have to like get into, right?
Yep.
These objective markers.
Exactly. So our next topic, measuring dose against objective factors. Do you want to begin?
Yeah. So essentially, if you want to know your program is working, you gotta kind of measure it against something, right? In powerlifting or in like any athletic, and let's go with powerlifting because this is a podcast revolving around that.
Yeah.
You need to kind of have an estimated 1 rep max, right? As an athlete, the most specific thing that you can do to test your strength is test your 1 rep max. But the problem is that it comes at a significantly large price in terms of fatigue.
You can't be doing that every
so you
now
kind
and
of
then.
Exactly, right? So like you kind of want to have a tool, like you have these calculations or equations that a lot of people use that measures based on your rep work, your estimated 1 rep max. Like I said, it's not a perfect 1 rep max, it is an estimation of where your 1 rep max currently is. To have within your training system, your coaching system, your any system, that there's got to be something that can measure this. Like what I personally use is an E1RM calculator. So if in my sheet, if you put in a certain rep, you hit it at a certain RPE, it tells us the E1RM is X, right? And the objective is the training dose given across weeks reflecting in that estimated 1 rep max going up in number, right? That's what we want to look at.
And this kind of like helps us to have an anchor to kind of look at as the trends go on. So dose by itself helps us quantify what we give to the athlete, and measuring it against something like an objective factor like E1RM is something that allows us to anchor that quantifiable metric, and just like we just get a graph out. We literally just get a graph out of it, and that's it makes our job, honestly, it makes our job way easier. It makes it way it makes it way easier, way simpler, and also it's something that everybody I feel should be knowing, especially if you're self-coach or something. Just having knowledge about what an E1RM is, how you can track it, how it progresses, and kind of applying it to yourself. That by itself could add a lot of progress to what you already have.
Because you can use objective markers like velocity, and you can use a lot of these things. Like you have a lot of objective markers that you can use. Like you have apps like Stance that kind of help us measure like velocity drop-offs. I have like a couple clients who use that. And there are certain benefits to it, especially in that orange zone measure that it shows. But largely, we are kind of working towards creating programs that up someone's 1 rep max. So the most indisposable kind of objective marker we have is E1RM, right? As you go across the weeks, is the client or the athlete that you're coaching, is their estimated 1 rep max going up, down, staying just the same, right?
And it's very
that's how you look at dose response.
And it's very easy to have especially for like recreational athletes, because you don't need them to have extra equipment. Like with the stance is pretty good. You know, you have it's very objective. It just shows velocity that you can't really, there's not much feeling involved. But you don't need to buy extra equipment. E1RM can be calculated just off formulas and through what RPE you feel. The RPE is also like a good point. If like I go on a tangent here, just like a very slight tangent here, auto regulation, when we talk about that is something to consider. Like you should probably keep that if you just like heard about E1RMs and like we just talked about it. Auto regulation is also something you might want to keep in mind, because if you're reporting your RPE wrong, or if you're kind of like, I'm going to be blunt, if you're kind of lying to yourself with your RPE, which a lot of people do, then that's not really going to give you the progress that you want. Like, because the graph on the sheet will be of the basis of different numbers and different RPE percentages to what you actually had. So something to keep in mind.
and it's like a skill in itself, right? Like
Yeah.
the weird thing is these objective like markers that we measure arise from certain subjective things that you kind of want to understand. So the
Exactly.
objective output is not always going to be accurate. But what I will say is that you want to largely think, is it trending positively,
Yeah.
right? So like if a guy doesn't do a 1 rep max test, but they're like set of 5 at RP 6 through 8 goes from like let's just say as a rudimentary as this, we take someone from a top set of 5 at RP 5 all the way to RP 7.5, 8, and in the first block the estimated 1 rep max goes up by 3.5 to 5 kilos. Second block you see a similar trend like that. You don't have to test this person's 1 rep max, right? The estimates are going up, and you can see that the working weight is also going up as a result of that. This is how you kind of want to build sustainable training, right? And I will say this thing. This is because I had like 2 guys join who kind of did this weird thing that if you're a powerlifter, you should not be doing this, and which is essentially like, I think Tapas has a video on this, and I think it's a very, very pressing topic that people talk about, is that do not do this thing where you're trying to save all of your energy for week 4. Right?
Yeah.
Like it is something that is like, people are like, yeah, you know, like I'll undershoot week 1, 2, and then week 3 and 4 I'll really push it. There are places where that may fit the athlete's like lifter profile, that but they may need to kind of have like a low end intro thing, and then they can build up to the end. But this thing of like saving your like strength for the end of the block is not a good thing, just to inflate the estimated 1 rep max at the end.
Exactly. And the thing is, we spoke about this in the previous episode as well. When you like kind of do that, you're not going to be getting the right stimulus anywhere throughout the block. Like if you're undershooting all your like first few weeks and then you're overshooting your last few weeks, you're just going to it's just you could have been in the middle, you could have gotten the right stimulus, but you just went to extremes. And the thing is, you might think like I understand like how much overshooting is kind of demonized out there, but I just want to put this out there again. We talked about this in the previous one as well. Undershooting is similarly bad, especially when it's by multiple points, because that just means you're not getting the stimulus which was required in that session itself. So if you're like RP 7s constantly move at like RP 4.55s, that's not really a thing to be proud about. That's not really something you should be aiming for, especially if anybody here is aiming for that, because I've seen like a few people advise this and it's not good advice.
Because the fundamental like thing that people think is that at the end of the block you should have this high crescendo that kind of arises, right? You start low and then you kind of see, like if you start too high you have nowhere to go.
Exactly.
Right? But if you start low, like Matt Minna for example has guys start off as like RP 1 to 2, right? You'll see like Matt, for example, squats over 800 pounds, but you'll see his top set is somewhere in like 650, somewhere there, and like his back offs will be like late 500s to early 600s maybe. But the thing about that, what he does is that he's gonna ramp that up very, very, very slowly, right? What I'm kind of alluding towards is because like someone like I talked to this guy, I had a call with him, and I said that, see, like you are like if you were to go like RP 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, like if you're ramping it up that slowly and you want to take it like that, that's doable, right? Because the prior exposure to stress will at least allow for the next week to kind of have that you're going. But if you're gonna go and tell me like when I asked for RP 5, 6, 7, 8, week 1 what are RP 5 was like RP 0, week 2 is like RP 1 maybe 2, or week 3 you're like, oh, I have to hit this RP 7 this thing. That is how you mess yourself up in the weirdest way possible.
Your body isn't really prepared for it, and then you just go boom, and then it's just not going to be the best thing for you.
And it also kind of shows, like I know we may veer off track, but I think like at some point or the other, the more athletes I get to work with, the more I want to kind of tell these things, is because it's very, very stupid that some people will like, they'll think, oh, at the end of this block I have to hit this number, right? Like you got to go with the mindset of like, I may get that, I may kind of have a bit more than that, like I may choose to hit less than that so that I can pace subsequent blocks a bit better, right? But if you are doing this thing where you're kind of doing nothing in week 1 and 2 and detraining yourself and blowing your load out on week 3 and 4, that's how you kind of like hook yourself.
Yeah.
And like have poor communication with your coach, and like Tapas says, it is impossible to collect that data.
Absolutely. And just like on this exact same point, I know like if like a few of you watching, you might kind of relate to this. Don't think of like your final weeks as PR weeks, right? Like
Exactly.
this is like a very common thing you see. Like, oh, my week 5 is coming up. I'm gonna hit a PR on this, on this, on this. It's all right. Okay, you might be hitting PRs for many blocks consecutively, but that does not mean that that is like a pattern which has to continue always. All right,
Yeah.
having personal records at the end of a block is always nice. It feels good, but having a mindset where you attach everything that you're doing with lifting to that number, like, oh, I want to hit
Yeah.
250 this block by the end of this block, or like, there's nothing else. I want to hit it, and you don't hit it. That's gonna fuck you up for the next, like, at least a block or
Yeah.
two. And if you
Yeah.
fail, it's not even, let's just say there's like two scenarios. Either you take like a lesser weight, and that kind of like fucks you mentally, or you actually take the weight and fail it even though you didn't have it on the day. That's just going to be very bad. So like, change this mindset. Like, this is something I just wanted to say. Like, change the mindset of having it as PR week, it's just the end of the block. You ramp it up. Some people have 12-week blocks where they ended at RP 6.5, maybe 7. They don't have
Yeah.
PR weeks. Oh,
Hey, sorry for that technical whoopsie. Sorry for that technical whoopsies, guys. But yeah, like we were saying, this assumption that every fourth week you have to hit a PR is probably the reason why like you can't build that training momentum, right? Um, I'll sometimes say like, oh, like let's say take 3 blocks for example. Block one of training can be like, can we get good movement quality and match a number close to our old PR, right? Like in terms of estimated 1 rep max. And then the second block can be built towards that, and the E1RM trends above your estimate, like previous 1 rep max, right? And by the third block or the fourth block after that, can we kind of express that strength that clarifies that we are in fact much stronger, right? But when people do the opposite, and like you said, they kind of want to finish so strong every 4 weeks, it's like Kaushal told you, right? If you start too
yeah,
high, you'll
you're
have
not going to
nowhere to
be end
go.
heavy. Yeah, exactly. And like, as Jay mentioned, the movement quality thing as well. Like, this is also just
Yeah.
like a little side tangent, not a side tangent actually. We'll just talk like this. We'll just continue on this topic here. Um, the movement thing is a very real issue. Like, I'm gonna tell this to you guys because I know this is something that people advise against. But when you change your form, ठीक है, especially like people who let's just say somebody switching, not just like form within, like, let's say you pull conventional, you have to change your form, you have to change your hints there, something like that. But if you like
Mm.
make some major change, like you switch from sumo to conventional or something like that, you are
Mm.
quite literally going to be doing like a new exercise when it comes to like what your mind perceives it as. And
Mm.
you are not going to be able to you're not going to be able to execute at your previous maximum potential for a while until your body learns that movement pattern on like a very subconscious level.
Yeah.
And that takes time and practice. And the thing is, when you're doing this, so I have like this guy who just he took like a month long break. He came back, he had like a little bit of an issue, we had to kind of work with that. uh, Form was pretty good for all of the weeks until like the final week where he kind of overshot a little bit,
Mm.
and his form kind of like degraded. And I expected that to happen to some extent, because when you go heavy, when the new form has not kind of just settled in, your body ka priority changes. The priority changes from movement quality and like how it looks to survival,
Mm.
basically. And
Yeah.
it's going to go to what it feels most comfortable at, which is going to be your older form. So yeah, to like sum this up, if you're changing your form, don't chase like weights and like PRs and shit like that.
Yeah.
Make sure that the movement quality is settled, you're able to handle that form on a higher load, and then yeah, then you can like work on it, as Jay said, like through multiple
Yeah.
blocks.
Because like when you kind of think about objective markers, I would even say like movement quality is like an objective marker that you can kind of utilize.
Absolutely.
But in essence, like you're measuring against something, you're kind of make sure you want to make sure that as you kind of approach this measurement, right? As you kind of want to up your estimated 1 rep max, you don't do that by any means necessary kind of a situation.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right.
You're
It's
supposed
kind of
to
important in that case.
Patience is kind of like an inherent thing here when it comes to
Yeah.
this. So yeah, so this was measuring dose against objective factors. Mainly, we spoke
Mm.
about the E1RMs. We gave you some advice on the weeks, especially the final week. Don't forget that. Okay? Tell
Yeah.
your friends, tell everybody.
Tell everyone.
And if your
Yeah.
coach tells you to undershoot the first few weeks and overshoot, like, or not overshoot, but like just hold everything back on the first few weeks and then max out in the end, ask them why they're doing that. If they don't have a very valid reason, you may want to reconsider. Not gonna say anything else. All right. I've also fallen prey to like this.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead. I have like a sheet here where we have an example of J's tracker, and then we also have a graph which kind of shows us dose response with volume and intensity. It's nice. Um, all right. Can you see the screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll let Jay explain the tracker. Actually, I don't know if you guys can fully clearly see it, but I'm just gonna explain like once what is here because I can kind of see it.
Mm.
So over here we have like the SBD exercise. Like we have is this bench, is this squat. We have the actual exercise itself, sets, reps, RPE percentage,
Mm.
the recommended loads, ranges, and this is
Yeah.
kind of like what the athlete has to fill. And these are the E1
Yeah.
RMs as we talked about. So yeah, you can explain.
Yeah. So like an athlete, like I give a certain dose, the athlete I kind of give them a certain window where that dose may reside, but I tell them like, oh, that load may reside, but they are kind of free to kind of play around with that and see like if they're feeling good, they can play on the higher end. If they're feeling kind of like not ready, they may want to play a little on the lower end and conservative there. But essentially, they just have to input the weight used, the reps hit, and what RPE they felt it was, and it kind of tells us like an estimated one rep max equations inside that kind of like inside those cells, and it kind of calculates what we need for us, right? And monitoring this becomes very important, not just for like, oh, am I hitting a PR, but also pacing. I think pacing becomes like I keep going back to this thing because I think it is screw it. I'm just gonna say this very openly.
Yeah.
It is a habit in some coaches to kind of create a buzz around their services by kind of asking their clients in the last weeks to kind of go all out.
Yeah.
Right? They want to kind of create this highlight and buzz about look at my athlete, what they're doing. What they fail to kind of understand is that they're taking away from the subsequent blocks if they tend to do this very often for people. All right. And it's what I'm saying is like we want to pace based on E1RM, right? We want to kind of pace based on the dose that we are providing, and we want to kind of see how a secondary day dose may interact with the primary day dose. The more accurate you can measure these things, the more accurate the input, the more accurate the data, the more accurate the feedback you can see in terms of the program that you are giving.
Absolutely. And yeah, that point was kind of true. So yeah, uh, yeah. So the sheet, that was the sheet. I'll actually share the screen again so you can see that a bit once again as like we explain. Um, so this is kind of the sheet there, and this is kind of what we generally have in in sort of like a powerlifting sheet. My sheets
Uh,
also have suggested loads. For some people, I use load caps instead of suggested loads because I'm just starting to trust them with their own selections. But I also follow like an E1 RMs as the progress tracker. But yeah, I don't have them in the main sheet there. I have like a separate sheet with the graphs in it,
mm,
and I it's manual. But yeah, so anyways, anyways, yeah. So that was the sheet. That was like an example of how we kind of use E1RMs in actual applicative basis to kind of program for people. I hope you understand by now what dose is, what dose response is, how we use objective metrics like E1RMs to kind of track and to program for, right? All right.
yeah.
So we have another graph here, which is quite an interesting graph, to be honest. I'm just gonna give them credit so we don't get sued. Credits to the strength guys for this. You know, we we kind of picked this graph up from their program there, but yeah, it's a graph of volume and intensity and like how their interaction kind of shapes the dose response relationship. And I'm
Yeah.
just gonna give you like a little guideline before we begin explaining here. So this like the green part that you can see over here, that's kind of like your most effective dose. So when you're
Yeah.
within that region, you're going to be having the most positive adaptations, the most optimal growth there, right? The upper part that you see right over here, that is the maximum recoverable dose. So
Mm,
that is kind of like just on your threshold of too much, and
mm.
after which it just becomes like diminishing
Overtraining.
returns. Yeah,
Yeah.
overtraining. So you just start to kind of get negative adaptations or like overtraining, as Jay said. And this, the big yellow part here, this is the maintenance dose. So we kind of talked to you about that as well. I think we talked about this quite in detail in the last one as well. If
Yeah.
you want to watch that, so this is kind of what you need to do to just kind of maintain what you already have. This is very useful for some people. As I'll give you an example. This was like very useful for somebody who was very busy. So when I had to program for somebody who could only train for like 3 days a week and they had like very busy like corporate schedule and flying here and there, instead of having them not train at all and then go into like a detraining phase, you could program the bare minimum they need to maintain what they have for now until this phase gets over, and then you can obviously just start to program for positive adaptations again. Um, yeah, there's caveats to that, but I'm not going to go into that. And
Yeah.
the bottom part over here is the detraining dose, which we spoke about in this video only, so not going to explain that again.
All I kind of just want to add to this is like you would want to visualize this range as like the spectrum, right?
Hmm.
So you'll have like a training dose so little that the athlete detrains. You have a thing just above that where the athlete can maintain. You'll have a thing just above that where it's a little bit more and the athlete starts to grow a little. You'll have something above that that is the most effective dose that you can give where they are making the most amount of positive adaptations. You'll have a range above that that is like, well, they can do this. They don't really grow from this, but they can still recover, right?
Hmm.
In the SRA curve, after you have a stimulus, you have to first recover because that is the order of operation, like stimulus, recovery, and then adaptation, right? At maximum recoverable volume or maximum recoverable dose, you're not growing, you're just able to recover. And anything above that, you start to detrain. Like
Hmm.
you start to kind of see negative results, right? And I want to kind of mention something here that's important is the fact that when you have for example, a maintenance dose given to an athlete and a maximum recoverable volume kind of scene thing, you'll have the same outcome, right? Because in the maintenance dose, you maintain strength. In the maximum recoverable dose, you're maintaining strength because you can't recover, you can't adapt because you're just recovering barely, right?
Absolutely.
And when you have like a detraining dose where like there's a reduction in performance, that is the same as like an overtraining dose because in that case also you're kind of like seeing a reduction in performance but for the opposite reasons, right? In a detraining dose too little stimulus, in an overtraining dose too much stimulus. In both cases you're eating shit, right?
And
And then you
yeah,
have like the positive window of like that minimum effective to maximum adaptive volume where you are seeing good progress, right? And
yeah.
the objective for us as coaches is to find that range, and you
Hmm.
can find that to tracking good data and measuring it against objective markers, right? So just to
Absolutely.
spiel this out, there's detraining dose, maintenance dose, minimum effective, maximum
Maximum.
recoverable, and maximum adaptive, maximum recoverable, and anything about that is like this overtraining dose.
And just like a little point to add to what Jay said there. So when you said like the result will be same when you detrain compared to when you go over the dose, this is kind of what we. I hope you were able to like, kind of think about this or relate it to what we just said. Like undershooting is kind of equals to overshooting,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of it being bad. So like I hope you understand. I hope you understood that. Just think about that as well, right?
No,
Um,
because like I just want to add one thing just for people's
yeah.
clarity.
Hmm.
A training dose is a combination of volume that is inseparable from intensity, right?
Yeah.
Like what I mean that if you give a certain rep
That is a nice
at
transition
a
into our next
certain,
one. It was VFI only.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So like you mind if we just spiel into that one like this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm essentially saying is like volume and intensity are inseparable from one another. All right. Um, you will a training dose is just that combination of that stuff. All right. So like Tapas says, like just because on a piece of paper something is given like, oh, this is the set and this is the reps and this is the RP or this is the load or this is the percentage that you have to hit, just because it's not there on paper and you kind of undershoot based on that, the problem that you're going to see is that you're going to be detraining.
Yeah.
There's not going to be enough stimulus. There is not adaptations of a positive nature won't be driven, right? What will instead happen is you may either maintain or almost lose strength because you are no longer providing sufficient adaptation doses or stimulus to actually adapt.
Absolutely. And this is also where, like, if you have a coach or if you're like self-coached and you have sheets, self-coached especially, this is something for them. Discipline in filling them out on the basis of what you have in the session, like actually, not what you think you had, not what like your best friends might tell you. Oh no, it was an RP6. Be honest, because not being honest is going to cost you your like strength gains that could have occurred, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like self-trained, because if you have a coach, it's kind of their job to help you understand how to do that, and just like make sure that you're doing it accurately. But if you're self-coached, that discipline matters a lot more, because you could be on the wrong trajectory for months not even knowing it, just because you were like,
Mm.
oh wait, this looks like an RP7, it was a 9. I'm just giving
Yeah.
you an example, but yeah. All right. So, yeah, as we were talking about this, like volume, intensity, how they're inseparable, our next topic was kind of like our a recap on VFI. So we already
Yeah.
spoke about volume and intensity. Frequency is like another element of that, is basically how much you're going to be doing, how many sessions you're doing in a week, essentially, how often you're going to be doing it. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just tell people a thing like frequency is, in my opinion, the most. Oh, yeah. So, like, provided that you don't redistribute the existing stress or the
Hmm.
existing dose, but you're adding an entire day of something, that is, in my opinion, the most potent stimulus that you can add, right? Because you're entirely adding a new window of stress into something, right? So, volume and intensity is the dose, frequency is how you distribute that dose. Why do we kind of care about that thing? Say, for example, like, I think this is important to understand. If a person trains on Tuesday,
Hmm.
and no matter like and their other day of like primary this thing is, let's say, on Saturday, right? No matter what you add on Tuesday, like you find that this person shows up on Saturday underprepared, right? They constantly give feedback like, man, I feel like the weight's always heavy in my this thing. I don't feel comfortable with the weight on my back. So what do we usually do? You can either like up the peak or average intensity
Hmm.
of the secondary day and see how they'll respond. You can up the average intensity with a little bit of peak exposure or like some combination of that thing. But if they just don't have time on that day
Hmm.
and they can only then train on Thursday, so you have to now take a stimulus on Tuesday. From Tuesday to Saturday, you now go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You want to kind of see that, okay, my Tuesday stimulus just has to be strong enough to carry a positive adaptation to Thursday. And then I have to give a dose there that is positive enough to carry me over to Saturday.
Saturday.
Right?
Hmm.
So it's like a bridging thing. I look at frequency as like connecting bridges for a stimulus. Right?
Good analogy. Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that's how people should think about it. Because I'll just give us an example of like if I do two sets of five on Monday and two sets of five on Saturday, very
Hmm.
rudimentary, right? And if I just say, oh, I want to do two sets of five on Thursday again, I'm not going to match, but that's like a 33% jump in like net stimulus, right?
Yeah.
So like you kind of have to understand that is like throwing a bomb into like into a space. You kind of want to see like you want to slowly build up. Can you redistribute current existing stress and see positives? Then that's how you should be, because
Yeah.
at least the total weekly stress stays the same, right? If you're adding an entirely new day while keeping the others the same, you're just gonna up the general stress a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just like one point I wanted to add, just for like those people who are kind of confused about what redistributing stress means. Yeah, like if we have like a certain amount on, like let's say as Jay said Thursday, we want to add another day. We don't really just add another day and just put like three sets there again. We kind of redistribute the number of reps and the sets on this, like figure out the average intensity and try to replicate that there, in a way that like if I were to explain it simply, like in a way that if you add both of them together, it's still like the same stress that it was initially. So you just redistributed them. You don't add anything
Yeah.
new. I just wanted to explain because I know like some people might be confused about what redistributing stress meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The total reps may say total sets, the total reps may say stay the same throughout the
Hmm.
week, but there's a set based distribution that we've kind
Yeah.
of like created. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But let me just be like this super dumb. If you did three sets on Tuesday, you did three sets on Saturday, you just be like, man, let me take one of these sets from Tuesday and put it
Hmm.
on Thursday. Right. So there's two instead of three and three, you just go two, one, three.
Yeah.
And you see if that stimulus carries over, great. You just found the holy grail.
Yeah. That's pretty much what redistribution is. When yeah. And I have like one question here. Like I had a point for discussion that I just wanted to say. I want like somebody asked this and I just put it in here. So most people dramatically overestimate their training intensity and underestimate what volume tolerance like they actually can develop. And this is like something, the volume tolerance thing is I'm gonna go on like that first because if you've been following like for the past actually like if you've just been following us, you know that we've talked about how powerlifting is not just about like singles, doubles, triples, whatever, right? Volume tolerance can be more like people do eights on deadlifts, people do uh, Mike T does like nines or something, right?
12s.
12 he does 12s, right? So like volume tolerance can go way higher than like what most of you might imagine that you can do. Like a lot of people, they cap it at like fours, or I can't do more than fours on a top set or like on a primary day. But redistributing it does not necessarily mean that you only need to do fours or fives. Volume tolerance can be different as well. And I'm gonna let Jay explain like how people kind of like overestimate their training intensity while programming. Like
Yeah.
this is something like somebody
Yeah.
just asked. Yeah.
No, because the first thing I also want to kind of see is like if you pick a set of eight,
Hmm.
right? Like a set of eight, that like we said, if you pick a certain volume, right, it is attached to a certain intensity window, right? If
Hmm.
you look at an RP chart, you'll see like set of eight from RP2 to like one to RP10 is like I think sets of eight go up like 70 something percent, 74%, 75%,
Yeah.
somewhere there. Like set of eight at RP10 is apparently 75% of your one rep max. Forgive me, I may be off by a percentage or so.
Get the point. Yeah.
But
Jay, get the
what I
point.
kind of say, yeah, right. What I'm trying to say is like if you give someone there's a lot of caveats here that I want to kind of walk
Hmm.
someone through. If you are giving someone a higher rep set, right, you kind of want to ensure that they have the movement competence to execute the exercise to the highest standard required. Because while volume work offers us a larger window of intensity, right,
Hmm.
that we can play around with, the problem is volume reinforces technique. So if you have dog shit technique and you give higher up sets, then it becomes a bad recipe, right?
Yep.
Because that person is not going to benefit from that. They don't have the right to kind of utilize that, right? So you need to find another way to kind of the total sets. You can just go instead of 2 by 8, you can go 3 by 5 because
Hmm.
both of them are like there are like total 16 sets. But then you will have to do certain things to kind of rearrange the stress or push a certain RP to a certain point to match them. But one thing I'll say with people is the fact that a lot of guys will just burn themselves out by going too heavy.
Yeah.
Like Kaushal always puts this thing up, like of like Austin Perkins like squatting like 220
Yeah.
kilos, 215, 230, right? Why does he do that? Because dude, that's where like if I were to put on my sheet, like I gave somebody on my sheet like a set of five at like RP 3.5 to 4, right? And that guy was like, why am I doing this? Right? Because you don't have the movement competency for me to like accumulate that into larger sets. All right. So I kind of have to break down the window and the equivalent RP, I'll have to pull it down. All right. And I have in my sheet the range finder, the RP, like high sensitivity RP calculator. And what I tell people is you are flying too close to the sun on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is eventually you'll get burned. Now people will be like, man, but I got strong, right? I kept hitting heavy singles every day. For example, Anasabari from like Stacked Cast, I think he benches like 5 or 6 times a day, and he kind of can hit like heavy
A
singles
week.
every day,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly, a week, right? My point, 5 or 6 times a week,
Huh.
right? And he hits a heavy single. I think, forgive me if I'm like misquoting him, but I think he hits it like very frequently. Like someone like Sean used to do that. I think Sean Norega still does that. Forgive me
Uh-huh.
again that. But what I'm saying is the fact is that these programs don't start off like that, right? They are kind of like introducing new stress and frequency here and there based off of previous block feedbacks. This guy must have just benched twice a week. Then they're like, oh, it's not working. Let me add this third day. Then that stalls. Then they try to redistribute within the 3 days. That stalls. Then they add a fourth day. Then things progress, right? It's this refinement process that you go through, and that's why you collect data over like a long period of time. But what I will say is like a lot of these guys, you walk in any powerlifting gym, how many guys do you see grind out reps like they're fighting for survival?
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. And that's like very common as well, which
Yeah.
again like it really shouldn't be unless you have that testing thing in mind where you're actually like going to your 1RM as we discussed initially. And yeah.
No, that word you used, right?
Hmm.
I think like shout out Norman. He taught me how important words are, right? Because like that thing you said about testing strength. When you're
Uh-huh.
testing, you're not building something.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
testing what you have built, right?
Exactly.
And shout out to Johan, like he talks about the fact is that you can you need you're the majority of your year is based on like building good amount of muscle mass,
Yeah.
good motor patterns with the SBD, right, and then expressing that when required. If you're constantly like a lot of people, again, I'm going off
Bigger
tangents, but
muscle is a
I'm just
stronger
like
muscle.
exactly,
Yeah.
but I'm going off tangents. Like a lot of people butcher that RPE pro like so RPS's protocol of like a single at RPE followed by like a percentage drop at
Yeah.
75% or like
Hmm.
70. Like, dude, you will see that when Mike T does a single at RPE 8, it is a single performed at RPE 8 that is of pristine, crisp technique.
Hmm.
Right? Like
And it's
that's
actually at
what he's asking.
RP8.
Yeah, it's like an RPA, and you're like, man, he had like really good two more clean reps in like in that situation. Like it's evident there, right? But like when people write one of these protocols for someone that does not possess this thing, does not have the mental temperament to do this thing, right? It becomes a very big red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also like why, as we told earlier as well, it is a skill to be able
Yeah.
to kind of follow and adhere to RP percentages and just as we said, like RP8, you have this and it looks good, and you have like reps in the tank.
Yeah. Hey,
I've
who
seen
cares?
so many people like they treat RP8 singles and I mean it's fine to celebrate, it's fine to be hyped up, but you do not like the RP8 single hype. Oh, I saw an RP8 single, I'm gonna max out. Those should not be conducive terms. Like those should not be terms which are correlated. You should not be maxing out at an RP8. Just wanna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like dudes will say like a triplet RP8, and you're seeing like, dog, I could put a gun to your head. You're not getting another rep,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But because why does that happen though? It goes back to the thing that you mentioned.
Hmm.
They assume again here, like I talked to a guy for 45 minutes the other day to kind of like cover this thing. Because the assumption is that sometimes you can't blame the athlete. I think it's very
Yeah,
easy for a
that's true.
coach to say, the athlete's an idiot, right?
Your
Sometimes you
job
want to
is to
educate
not
them.
make them an idiot, na?
Yeah, and that sometimes requires not just programming, but educating them in the fact that, hey, listen, dude, right? That's not an RP8,
Hmm.
right? What do we mean by it? What am I asking for it? It does not mean like an eight, like like a mentorship I did with the guys from Battalion Babel. They were just saying that younger athletes should build temperament. So like that top sets can be really far off away from, like they can be like RP 6 to 7 somewhere there, right? And the thing is that it kind of gives them enough, but keeps them far away from burning out kind of a situation, right? And reps and reps and reps of this practice exposure will just make them stronger in general,
Yeah.
right? That is what we kind of like want to like build
And
towards,
it
I feel.
also just like just another point to that, like obviously it helps them with the temperament, as Jay said, like they don't have an opportunity to kind of max out at an RP8 when you don't give them that. And also it just in my experience I feel it does help with confidence building as well when they do their previous like maxes or whatever after like a few blocks at an RP6. They become way more confident of what is ahead. They become way more confident at actually just loading the weight itself when moving ahead, because after like a certain point, I've seen this with a few of my guys, they get in their head way too much, and that
Yeah.
becomes like an issue. Like, okay, I've always benched 100 kilos. Like I've benched 100 kilos for like a year and a half straight because I was just going to the gym doing not much. Now I'm on a program schedule, and 100 kilos is like my RP6 single. But after that, it just gets in. They just get in their head, and like above 100 kilos, they think of it like this, put it on a pedestal. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think like having that where you're able to have them do their previous maxes at like a very sub maximal RP, like a RP
This
six or
is where the
seven.
next thing, in my opinion, comes into play.
Hmm.
The next thing, that top set working set dichotomy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So having them do that, it just kind of helps with that, because I'm sorry if like I'm going off on too much of tangent here, but like I feel programming, obviously you program for strength, program for adaptation. You also need to program for an individual's mindset, like how they think, how they kind of react,
Yeah.
because there's going to be some dudes who are absolute monsters. They're like, oh, I can lift anything in the world. You give them anything, they're like obviously not anything, but you get my point. Like you program for them, you give them top sets, and you give them like higher percentages over time, where the weights like progressively go up to you could say a scary load for normal people, but they're still able to perform. They're very confident in themselves. They're like, oh, I can lift this, I have no issues mentally. And then you have some people who have the strength but they're unable to express it just because they get in their mind too much. You need to program for them
Right.
differently. You won't be, I mean, you can program for both of them the same, but the results won't be as optimal.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, like any yeah.
No, the simplest way is like, well, like you can think about ascending sets, all right? Ascending sets are a great way to kind of introduce someone to like gradual
Yeah.
stress within a certain session. So if you have a person that's afraid of this like top end intensity kind of thing, and they always overshoot, or they overshoot because they overanalyze or something, you want to kind of create the rep structure in such a way, or the
Hmm.
set structure in such a way that it psychologically allows them to get there, all
Yeah.
right? Right. It's just that like programming is both physiological, but like physiology can't be separated from psychology.
Absolutely, like quote that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Get that tattooed on my ass.
Bro, I can't. Yeah, let's just let's just hope I remember to cut that out. If not,
Don't cut it out. If he cuts it out, I'm suing him in a court of law.
But yeah, so you guys get the point there, okay? I have the top sets and back offs. I have like a RP percentage graph there that we made. I'm gonna
Yeah.
share that here, right? And we're gonna talk about that a bit more. So yeah, so this is the graph here. I'm just gonna give you like what this is essentially. Over here, this is kind of like the RPE scale as it says, 0.51, whatever. And these are the reps that you do. So if you're doing, let's say, like one rep at an RPE 10 is 100% intensity. All right. And yeah, 100% intensity. And these are like the percentages that kind of like correlate with the rep range and the RPE that is conducive to.
Yeah. So, like, when you kind of give someone a programming thing and you, why do we have these? Like, let's kind of just jump into that top set back off like that, and
Yeah.
like that, right? So, like, first thing is like, yeah, I think the body behaves like there is the movement of squatting. That is a skill, right? That is a skill in itself, right?
Absolutely.
But within the above that skill, there is a skill of squatting at higher intensities, right? Or like deadlifting or benching at higher
Yeah.
intensities,
Yeah.
right? So there are levels to this skill kind of a thing, right? Squatting something at like less than 80% may feel a certain way, but when you get above 85%, I'm just gonna say like 85 to 100%, your body starts to behave differently, right? Like gaps in the system start to show more evidently, which may not show up at like submaximal loads. And the thing about this is that you need practice in submaximal ranges, but you need some skill practice, and some people may need more skill practice, right? So you need skill practice at a top end, and you need skill practice at a back off, or like which we should like rephrase entirely from now on as the
The
working
working
sets,
sets. Yeah.
right? Rather than going this top set back off mentality, think about the top set as practice for like that top end exposure, right? You just want to touch that,
Yeah.
right? And then based off of that, you can more effectively program the working sets. Because forgive me, spiel time gonna go off on a tangent,
It's fine. Yeah.
right? The top sets, why do we kind of use them, right? Top sets can be utilized for multiple reasons. On secondary days, people may have top and top sets to kind of like, because top sets, this exposure to this higher intensity, it can have many different benefits that intersect with one another. One is it potentiates the back off work or the working sets, right?
Yeah.
You touch something heavy, the things below that start to feel a lot lighter,
Lot easier.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so as again rudimentary thing, if you are someone given like 3x6 at RP 5 to 6 across a block for your secondary day, and all of a sudden your coach is like, what if I add like a variation triple prior to that? Like when you kind of lift something heavier, you kind of notice, oh, the back offs are like the working sets are going really well
Way
there.
easier.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and because that's going way easier, it's feeding better into the primary day. All right. So you can have top sets as exposure, right? But you can also have top sets as indications of strength. Like on a primary day, the day with the highest. Okay, I use this. That okay. It's important I mention not always, but they with the highest peak intensity, let's say, right? Not
Yeah.
cumulative stress, because the secondary can have way more like cumulative stress, right? Um, and you can like have, yeah, there are many things that you can do there. But what I'm saying is like top sets can potentiate, right, and make us familiar, but it's also an indicator that we can kind of use to see where is our like E1RM, right? Because when you measure someone's E1RM based on an 8 rep max, that's not that accurate, right? The more you move away from that one rep, it becomes hazy, right? So if you can give them like a triple, a four, a double, even a conservative single, right? It's almost always an indication of where that strength is. But just because on the primary day it's an indication, we use it as an indicator tool, doesn't mean it does not potentiate that day's working sets as well,
Working sets. Yeah.
right? But the most important thing I'd say is here is like if I could change something in the vocabulary people have, the top sets are where you may express or be exposed towards higher intensities, and you get practice with the skill of handling higher things. But a majority of the work is built beneath that in the working or back off
Back off.
sets,
Yeah.
right? As a powerlifter, your objective is force production. Force is mass times acceleration, right? It is important to understand intent here. Like if you're given submaximal loads, like an equivalent of an RPE-3 or something. If you are looking at force production maximization, you don't have to increase the mass. Force is mass into acceleration, right? Basic physics. If the mass goes up, the amount of force that you may have to put up goes up, right? Will go up, right? But if the mass stays the same, the weight given stays the same. But you tell your athlete, I want us to move as fast and controlled as possible. By control, I mean technically sound as possible, right? On the concentric, on the way up, right? On the way pushing out, you'll start to see that this person gets better at force production. So
Yeah.
because the working sets they reinforce force production, it becomes easier to express that in the top end strength, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything there related to that. So yeah. Uh,
Yeah. And like when you look at top sets, I just give people like a rough guideline. Please, this is a rough guideline. It is not an absolute guideline. When you have like I think triples at RP5 or something start at 79%, and if you look at that chart,
mhm.
right? Like about 80%, you can give them start to give people like top end exposure 80 because that's where that body starts to behave differently, right? Maybe not between like 70 to like 80%, it doesn't behave that differently. And by the way, newer lifters stop giving coaches who give newer lifters these random top sets. Why? Right? Like you may want to first build the base,
Yeah.
right? Because I'd say this thing again, not my idea at all. Learn this from that like Anas's mentorship, Anas, Skylar, and Sean's mentorship, like floor and ceiling kind of a thing, right? The working set may start to rise the floor so that the ceiling can start to kind of like go up, right? Accessories will build the floor. All of these things build the floor so you can build a higher ceiling off of that thing. When you give a newer lifter who is like 50 kilos soaking wet, these crazy top end singles kind of thing. For what reason? All right. If that person was more focused on good movement quality, right, through working sets and good accessory selection, they'll just get stronger.
Absolutely, that's true. And this is applicable to like most people who I would say that I've seen this personally. Like this is applicable to most people who come to a coach for the first time ever. Most of you guys, like you, the movement quality could always use improvement, and this is kind of why you see a lot of threes and all, like in terms of sets, like three by threes, 3x5s, whatever, instead of like a direct top set. Not if you were to take something away, just
You have
remember
straight
not.
sets.
Yeah, exactly. Straight sets, three into whatever. Right? If you were to take something away, just like remember that not everybody needs a top set. Okay, all right. Just something to keep in mind to kind of summarize this. Not everybody needs a top set. Not
Can you
everybody needs
repeat
that.
good quality movement before you are testing good quality movement? That's the thing, right?
Yeah. And I just wanted to add another point to that as well, like exposure, like you mentioned before, that there are two separate skills essentially, doing it below 85% and then above 85% squatting, for example. The reason that happens is because I just wanted to explain, like I already told this, we already explained this. The reason that happens is because like your body's goals kind of change, and that's not something you can actively control, which is why you need practice in it. Like you can't actively think about your form when you have 90% of your one rep max on your back. You can do
Mm.
that on like a submaximal load and kind of reinforce good form movement quality, but doing the same thing on a heavier load is not really going to be very possible, if I were to say it in like a very simple way.
I think like that is probably like the best thing like from this podcast if anyone can take out like that point
Yeah,
is like excellent, right? Because at top ends you're not thinking about surviving, right? You're
yeah,
thinking about executing, right? You don't want the brain fog. You don't want to kind of like start
yeah,
jotting out random numbers. Sorry about that. You
yeah,
don't want to start thinking about these random situations, right?
yeah.
You want to, like you said, the back off work, the working sets, great technical execution, moving with confidence, moving with intent, maximizing force production. That's largely it.
And yeah, this is also why, like on secondary days where you know that the exercise itself is for improving movement quality, so a lot of tempo variations, for example, just an example, you probably do not want to push that on loads. Specifically, like I tell a few of my guys, like especially when I see them doing this, you do not need to be pushing load on that, because load by itself is not the priority. Movement quality is the priority in that, and it also serves as priming, which we'll probably get to that in like some other episode, right?
Mm.
But yeah, anyways, yeah, so you do not need to be pushing on those essentially. Okay, I feel like I'm talking a bit too much. So not everybody needs a
No,
top set. Not everybody, yeah, so not everybody needs a top set. And that's kind of like the reason that I just explained why you are unable to focus on movement
yeah.
quality at a higher
Hey,
loads.
by all accounts, like again, instead of dumping it on athletes, as
Hmm.
coaches, we should also be like, hey, the
Yeah.
athlete should have the free will to kind of ask us why is that
Yeah,
there in the
yeah, yeah.
program, right? And
You should
if
kind of
I
be
can't
open
give
to that.
them, yeah, yeah, like if someone asks me like, why is that thing there? I'm like, well, it's for this.
Yeah.
This is the intention. This is what we're hoping to achieve.
And doing this, okay, bro, imagine like we give this advice and then we just get cancelled. Like, I'm just gonna tell you, like, ask your coach questions. Like, if you have a coach, ask them questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Oh, yeah.
that by itself could reveal like a lot of things to you. It could be positive, it could be negative. I'm not gonna get into that,
Yeah.
but you should probably like be doing that, especially in India. If you're like an Indian watching this with like if coach here, probably be doing that. Ask your coach questions.
Because like I also use it as an opportunity to learn, right? Just to like
Yeah,
kind of refine my community. Because I think Kaushal mentions this to me, and I think like it's one of the first things he said that if you have your athletes back and you can get them to buy into the process, a dog shit program bought into will perform far greater than the greatest program that is kind of like a mystery to someone.
yeah, because you don't. So when you know what is the reason you're doing a specific exercise, you will by yourself also be just have more intent while doing
You
it.
have intent.
And intent is one of the most powerful things you can do, like have when it comes to lifting, because yeah, I think intent by itself also like there's a lot of topics that's coming to my brain that we could make like other episodes on, but yeah, intent is like a very important thing. I hope everybody knows what intent means. I hope I do not have to explain what intent means. Just
Giving a fuck.
yeah, giving a fuck, like just having intention while lifting. Like, oh, okay, I'm lifting right now. Okay, I'm not going to like I don't know, scroll on Instagram, or I'm not going to like be talking to my girlfriend on the phone like between the sets. I don't know why I'm giving this example, but like shit like that. So don't be doing that. Just be focused in the gym, be logged in. People say, yeah, it's pretty good, even in the gym, especially if you want to be an athlete in powerlifting. So yeah, intent matters, and when somebody knows why their movement is in the like why a certain movement is in a program, their intent improves a lot, and that by itself can help progress improve quite a bit.
And just throwing this out there as a rough window because a lot of guys have asked me this question. Top sets, a rough estimate, okay, rough guesstimate. Around that 80 to 90%, you can kind of program it there based on athlete sustainability. That's on you to monitor, all right?
Hmm.
And strength for working sets can be built anywhere between 65 to 80%, right? And it's not like the top ends don't help build strength. It's not like the working sets don't help build top end strength, right? They both interact with one another. But your working sets, you probably start them as low as 65, track them up as high as 80. Your top sets maybe as low as 80, may track up all the way to 97% for some people, like lightweight female benchers. There's
Yeah.
context to all of these things, right? Just throwing this percentage thing out because people have asked about that.
And like on this only, like I hope you guys understood by now that dose and like the response you have to, and like percentages for
You have
RPEs
to
and issues,
analyze.
yeah, they're very individual. I mean, yeah, they are very individual to people. Like you literally have RP, you can make RP percentage graphs for
Yeah, into that.
different people according to their own inputs, right? And I think we discussed this point in the last episode as well, where like you said how lighter like females, they can bench way closer to higher
Yeah,
intensities on the bench.
yeah,
But if you do that same thing to somebody like, I think we did talk about this in the last one. Like if you do the same thing to somebody like Will Ball, he'll die, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it is individual dependent. Your job, like taking whatever like we've said here, whatever we've like given you here, taking that away, your job should be to kind of like think about what we've said and how you
Yeah,
can actually just apply it
yeah.
to the point where how do you do that for yourself? Like, okay, so now I know what a dose is, right? I know what dose response is. I know how volume and intensity affect it. I know what volume, intensity, and frequency is. I know that top sets are not necessary, ascending sets what they are. Why back offs are like necessary, and like we
Yeah, we
talked
can
about
have an entire thing on how to build a protocol. What is the
yeah,
intention
exactly,
behind the
yeah,
protocol?
yeah, we can do that. We can run through like, yeah, that'll be nice, but yeah. like a lot of ideas going through my mind right now. But yeah, we talked about all of that, right? So all of this that we told you, think about like all of that, and then how do you actually apply that, right? How do you actually like we are actually giving you a lot of applicative basis as well. We've talked about how you applied, we've shown you screenshots of the program. So now your job should be not to just like turn this off and like go away. Try to understand how you can take this whatever you learned here and actually apply it to yourself, your clients, whoever you are, and how you can kind of use that to program better, scientifically better, right? Because that's kind of like
Just even the dumbest of questions here for people, right? Like if
hmm,
you have a client with poor general squatting patterns when designing their program, is your intention to have a lot of top sets? Probably shouldn't be. You have then another athlete who has really good squat technique, but they struggle with heaviness of the bar on the back
hmm,
on primary days. On primary days, they're afraid of like handling top end sets, but their technique is pristine. Should you be maybe programming top sets both on secondary days and primary days, or start off with just primary days and see how that goes, right? Because if you go primary and secondary, you don't know what works into what, or are
yeah.
both a prerequisite necessary. But if you just go primary day at top single and see, are they getting better at handling this thing? Right? Are they getting better at handling the top set? Is the top set now helping their back offs like load kind of jump up? Right? Like these things, you gotta like everyone thinks there's like a textbook somewhere somehow that someone's written that has all the
We
answers.
wish.
Like you can like dude, I swear to God, this is like a thing that they're deviating. I want to make this known. My respect for Kaushal will ultimately always rise because like having more than like 30, 40 people, like 30 people are kind of being handled at the moment on my end in like just online. The thing is like it's not easy. Like people think, oh, you just sit in your phone and just every week you just go by one RP. Dude, you like people don't understand the fact how much you have to monitor these individuals. They don't understand that how much of the data you'll have to collect, how many of these individuals will veer off, and how much you have to communicate with them. Right. So
You
just
need to
because you've
do
written these
this.
protocols,
Yeah, you
yeah,
need to do
every
this if
day.
you actually want to coach somebody well. Just like a
Yeah.
side note, like
Yeah, like if you give a fuck, like if you just
yeah,
want to take that cash, you can just do that stuff as well.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is like this is not you gotta prescribe, you have to monitor prescription adherence, you have to see because you can have all the reasons to have something in a program, right? You can think, oh, this is the reason. You can communicate it effectively to them. They may do it for 2 weeks, but by the third or fourth week, they start to veer off with this behavior.
Hmm.
What kind of happens then?
How do you deal with people lying on their sheets and then like maybe
Yeah.
telling you that, oh, I didn't record? Because I've dealt with this, and it's like adherence is kind of the biggest, like is the biggest part of the strength pyramid, right?
Mm.
And without adherence, there's not really going to be anything else. If you don't follow
Yeah.
the program, or if your client doesn't follow the program, it can be the world's best program, but they've not followed it,
Yeah.
right? So how would you deal with something like that? How would you deal with somebody not filling the sheets or filling the sheets wrong and then lying to you? Like shit like this, it makes you think, and this is sort of like it's also interesting at the same time because you need to deal with this sort of shit. But so yeah, like I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but like it was just a side tangent there.
No, like because it's as easy as this is like when you give someone something complex, can they handle that complexity in their program? Not in
Hmm.
terms of execution, not
Hmm.
in terms of
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
it's a simple like if I give you and say like oh the top double at RPE-7 back off percentage at like -10% for like this multiple sets of five, right? Dude, you gotta kind of monitor and see like, oh, are they kind of even getting close to that double at the required RP, right?
Hmm.
Are they like, can they like, if that's not capable for them, all of this complexity that you've kind of designed, it goes into the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. And what was I saying? What was I talking about? I was talking about adherence, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When you have that adherence issue, I'm sorry, I fucking goldfish memory.
Yeah.
When you have that adherence issue, it's also important to think why it might be occurring. So this was like something that I
Yeah.
wanted to say because it's not always the athlete's fault, as like we just discussed. Like it might just be too complex, or like there could be other issues there. So maybe there's something in the program. I have a video on this on Instagram, like wherein if somebody is like continuously not adhering to something for multiple, not even just like weeks, even it could even continue on to blocks, or no matter how much you tell them, or like the even RM trends keep going down, no matter what you tell them,
Mm.
just like stop for a second and think the program may be the problem. Like you could
Yeah.
maybe change it, and yeah, that's something to just kind of like think about essentially.
Simplify, effectively communicate.
Hmm.
rewatch, like kind of a lot of things, right? Because there's this framework model that you want to think perception, judgment, action, right? If your
Hmm.
perception of something is misguided, your judgment about will always be misguided, and the actions you take based on like that poor judgment and perception will never lead you in a positive direction, all
Yeah.
right? So, like when someone talks to you, like it's kind of important. Again, I'll come back to this thing. I am not the greatest coach. I'm not even like a great coach. I am like someone who's trying to be good at this thing, right? But what I will say very openly is that as coaches, you do over reason to explain things to athletes, right? It is collaborative in some way, but you want to control things. You want to tell the athletes to buy into the process. But when an athlete repeatedly asks you or gives you feedback on something, and you're just giving them loose explanations, things get weird at that point for us.
Yeah, because that's also like a point where you lose a little bit of trust as well. Like this is again, this is like yeah, I'm not gonna say anything there, but yeah, this is like something that I've experienced. Like you do lose trust after that when you do that to like a client where they've continuously like either they've been injuring themselves consistently or something like that.
Yeah.
This happens like where you don't explain, and yeah, just
Hey, if you
explaining
just
is
say trust me, bro.
yeah, exactly. Like if you keep saying that, it's it's all. I mean, it's easy for you, but you might very like be losing that client pretty soon. Yeah,
Yeah, you could no, because that's how you break someone,
yeah.
right?
And it doesn't really happen at once, especially with like a coach client relationship. That's I would say like when it comes to like any sort of space like this, I think this is one of the most solid like relationships, like with a very low
Yeah,
churn amount, if I were to say it from like a business term. Because you, firstly we need a lot of data for which they need to stay with us for a while, and after that you develop like a kind of a relationship. So to break that, you need to do a lot. You need to do a lot for
yeah.
them to kind of like stop trusting you. So yeah.
Hey, I want to say some shit here. Forgive me for this thing. It is very evident to me when a person who has never played another sport comes into powerlifting and tries to coach. I swear to God, like you can kind of see, like my boxing coach when I was young could ask me to run through a wall, right? And I would do it for him because like he had my back. Coaching someone isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's actually having someone's
Absolutely.
back and their interest and actually maybe having to go a bit above what you are like required to, right? Because
Absolutely.
you can very quickly tell. It is so easy for me to tell when a guy just like talks this high level coaching thing, but they've never played another sport, right?
They've never
You've
played
never
this sport,
compared.
some of them.
No, but like I'll say like even just thinking things through, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Like
get
I
it.
just say it like listen, you can always like I go back to the thing about boxing as like a sport because the danger of damage is
Yeah.
very evident there, right? When my coach, like shout out to Jitesh, like shout out to like Remy Mo, like all the guys who ever coached me in my life, like in boxing, right? They had my back, and I was never great at it, but I just loved the fact that someone would instill that sense of like belief in you, and they never just said, "Oh, just trust me, bro." That's not what that thing was. All
Yeah, yeah.
right. They kind of instill that sense, right? There's a reasoning behind their method and madness, and they can explain it well. I think that's a good coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, had something similar with my tennis coach as well. Like when I was younger, like he was kind of the
Mm.
only one who believed that he could like turn me, who looked like a football, into into somebody who could play tennis
Right?
very
And that
well.
belief doesn't go away; it
Yeah,
stays with
exactly.
life.
It does. It
Right?
absolutely
And
does.
I mentioned this because like when I get an athlete who was like in for all lack of better terms with a coach that was like gaslighting and abusive, you can kind of see the sense of fear they have in communicating something with you.
Yeah.
All right, they'll do things, engage in behavior, and you just ask them like, "Is everything good, dude? Like you okay?"
Is
And
everything
they're like,
fine?
"No, I'm fine."
Thank you
And they're
so
like, "Dude, I'm
much.
not gonna beat you."
Like you respond to like one of their check-ins, you're like, oh, thank you so much, bro. I can't believe it. But yeah,
Yeah, I had a guy tell me like, "Oh, you responded in the week." I was like,
bro.
"Shouldn't I?"
Yeah. So yeah, I had like this slide up. Let me just like
Yeah,
show it for the purpose of showing it here. Um, this was like a discussion slide. It has all the images on it. I
yeah.
I do not know what this image was for, but I'm
No,
assuming
but
it was for like I don't know some sort of graph. But yeah,
is there. And let's just go with the fact that it's there. See, this is some high level production shit dude, we're on. Right?
yeah. Shit looks good here. Honestly, like we've got like the font here. We've got like our Instagram handles. We've even got like a not
We're
bad.
getting big time.
Yeah.
No, but like a lot of the guys who kind of I want to say maybe again, this is the most important contribution I can make to this is that top sets are where you can kind of build certain things, right? You can build the skill of handling heavier weights. Understand that in order to get better at a skill, you do not have to max out that skill. If I were to give a boxing analogy, sparring is not violence, like it is controlled violence. It's like going at 67%, 60, 70% so that each of you get better. Like if I'm sparring a guy at 70% and he's sparring me at 70%, and we both get better at 70%, right? Our upper shelf starts to go up, right? Our 70% start to go up a bit more over time. We become more skillful at handling that thing. So in a fight, it does not feel that alien to us. But think of top sets as similar like that. You may have an athlete. Like I have a female bencher. I swear to God, if she does not have like a single like again, accessories is the most important thing for her, right? No questions there. She's under muscle, she needs that, right? But to drive general strength in her, right? Even the back offs, her peak intensity has to be very aggressive throughout the week. So what I'm trying to say is that a top set is essentially exposure to a higher intensity. That intensity exposure can be for reasons of potentiating back offs or the working sets for like expressing top and strength in a sustainable manner, exposure in a prior day so as to better prepare us for primary day requirements if that's the need. Top sets serve a multitude of purposes, and these are not exclusive but interactive with one another. These qualities, right, of the skill, the exposure, the potentiation, the working sets are where you practice the skill in a very easy environment. You want to practice in easy environments because you learn in easy environments. Again, giving a sparring analogy, you do not learn how to fight by fighting at 100%. 50%, 60%, you get comfortable in the environment, you get comfortable in executing. As you get comfortable, you get confident. As you get confident, your ability to express better shows up.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, I hope everybody understood everything that we said till now. We did go off tangents quite like a few times, but I'm pretty sure they were all valuable tangents, right? So, if I'm just going to give you guys like a little bit of a summary of what we've spoken about, because it's been like an hour. How has it like it's somehow been like more an hour and 25 minutes. So, yeah, if I'm going to give you like a summary right now, we talked about the dose response relationship, a recap. Again, if you've not seen our last episode, I would recommend you go watch that, because that kind of, it's a, I don't want to say boring, because it's like it's still our podcast, but it's like it's a theoretical episode, but it teaches you a lot that you can kind of learn and come here and then learn how to apply what we've teached in the previous one, right? So I would recommend you go watch that. We did a recap on the dose response relationship. We kind of taught you how to use objective factors like E1RMs. We also talked about how velocity trackers kind of work like in conjunction. We also we also gave like an example with like a E1RM sheet from Jay's sheet, and we also had like a graph with intensity and volume landmarks, and that kind of mapped out how the different dose how dose response relationship works with volume and intensity with the graph that we showed you there as well. Top sets, back offs, we talked about average and peak intensity. The top set back off part, I think that was a very valuable part of this episode. Like if you were to take that away, that was just watch that. Like
I
that
hope
really
you
was,
understand it at a principle level, because if you understand at
yeah,
a principle level, you'll understand
you'll
the
be able to
why
think
something
about
is
it.
being done,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like the
we want
back
you to
off
think
thing.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, understand, right? That's the working sets kind of thing. That's between, you can go 60 to 80%, right? Just mentioning the intensity for people who want a objective number. It can be as low as 60, high as 80, even higher. There are exceptions to that. Top sets can be as low as 80, maybe 75. 80 to 97 is where I would say. But one more important thing, if you made it this far, start low, build high. That way, the risk is, if you start too low, you may detrain someone. So you can always up the stimulus and kind of train them into into like strength, right? You build too high, you start too high, you run the risk of breaking them,
Absolutely, absolutely. All right,
right?
so I think that's pretty much it. Should we wrap it up? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so again, thanks for Siege for like sending us some money, and I mean like for like sponsoring us and yeah, and yeah,
If
thanks
you
to all
made
of
it
you.
this far, Tapas will share his bank details with you.
That
He has not denied it.
I
Okay, if you
I
made it this
I
far, DM
I
him for
prof
bank
I
details.
profusely deny that, but But yeah, if you actually made it this far, then like congratulations. I'm pretty sure you're probably like one of like people you could count on a hand for now. Like eventually we'll have like a lot of, but yeah.
Yeah, moving forward, we will have some very, very interesting people joining us.
It's going to be good. All right. I do not want to spoil it. I've already spoiled for like two of my friends, and they were pretty excited. But but yeah, uh, yeah, it's going to be good. We're going to have a lot of guests on board, as we talked about in the intro episode as well. We just had to kind of narrow it down, and we wanted to give you guys like fundamentals, so that you were able to understand what we would talk to them, like whatever we would talk to
Yeah.
them about. They use terms like what we talked about today, like top sets, back ops, average peak intensity, dose
Dang,
response
we
relationship.
didn't go too much into the average and peak intensity thing. We can cover that on the next one maybe, or we'll make a
Yeah,
separate clip for that thing.
yeah, we'll do something like we'll make like a 10-minute video or something, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so this was just like the fundamentals episodes, like the first three, so that you're able to, if you watch these, like if you're like a new person to our channel, and if you're watching and if you're like watching this like a year later or something, and we have like multiple thousand, yeah, and we have like multiple episodes and shit. These three episodes, like the first, second, and third one that we've made, I would say that everybody who comes here should watch these, because they will give you like a very, very strong baseline, like a fundamental understanding of everything. And then you can kind of go and watch whatever we're going to be coming up with our guests. Not going to name them, but like it's going to be good. And you can take a lot
But
of
yeah,
value out of that as well. So yeah, yep.
thank you guys. Love you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.